Welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, the show dedicated to helping entrepreneurs use human design to shift from hustle to flow without sacrificing results. Come here to become an unshakable human and build an unshakable business according to your human design. I'm your host, Nicole. Hello and welcome to Unshakable with Human Design, everybody. I'm your host, Nicole. And today we're here together, just you and me. And I wanted to focus this episode on kind of the problem that I see a lot of people face when I do readings, when I work with people, certainly when people get started with human design, or if I even have friends out in the world who are like, I'm interested in this, but what do I do? What does this mean is the first question. And then they get the answer to what it means. And now they're like, okay, well, now what can I do with this? And then when it comes to our business, I think that this really stumps people. All right, well, how does this become my offer? How does this become my business? How does this become my brand? And this is why understanding what things are isn't the final frontier with this. Because you probably already know. If you've been listening to the show for any length of time, I've told you all of it. Because really what it's about is starting to see how these things link together and how you actually use this. How do you make use of it in your life is more, I think, a way that I want to say that rather than like, how do I use this? It's how do I make use of this in my life? How do I start to understand how I can take steps and change my behavior, change my awareness, change the way that I live so that I can be more in alignment with my design so that I can start to see how I build my business by design. So, of course, we have the typical answer, which is follow your strategy and authority. And you've probably heard that a million times from me and from other human design people. And you want to go deeper. So it's okay, great. But how do I go deeper? And the first thing I'll say to that is first, make sure you're actually following strategy and authority. Most people are not. They want to go deeper, but they haven't actually started following strategy and authority. So that's honestly why a lot of people are stuck with it, because they want more answers. And they're kind of obsessed with looking to the chart for these answers. They want to go mining for gold rather than working with what they already have. This isn't going to be an episode where I'm preaching to you to follow your strategy and authority. I just want to mention it before we dive deeper, before I tell you how you can start to use one of my favorite pieces for helping people understand how to understand their genius. How do I start to unearth my genius? How do I start to use it in my life? How do I step more into my gifts and start to really see how I use this in my business? How does that get clearer? How do we get clearer on what that message is? And one of my favorite pieces is what I'm going to share with you here, but I would be remiss if I did not mention strategy and authority is what guides you. It's going to be the when in doubt, follow strategy and authority, which most people aren't doing. Most people aren't following strategy and authority, or they're taking it too literally. And we have many episodes on that on this podcast, so I'm not going to go into depth in that. But I will say this, is that looking for answers in the chart, looking to the chart for answers does not typically yield the results that we're looking for. If you're looking in there trying to answer something, what does my chart say about this? What does my chart say about that? I can hear that now, that people are like, I need an answer and I want to find it in here. And that typically does not get you to where you want to go. And you've got to let go of that. And that's the first step in actually getting what you want out of the chart. However, I will say that looking to the chart for insight is where magic happens. If you use it, that's why I always say that my readings that I do with people, certainly the business readings are really set things off. But all of the readings that I do, they're like little sparks that we're lighting. It's seeds that we're planting. They're activations that are happening. And because of the way it's delivered and because of the way we go into it, and if you're looking for insight, you get it. And then insight blooms into answers later. You walk the path and the answers start to show up. That's the beauty of this work, because that's how you change while you're getting results, while you're working toward the results that you want to create in your life. And this work will unearth a lot. As it's unearthing your genius, it's also going to illuminate your shadows and really show you why you're stuck, where you're stuck, why things are not working. So it is this holistic perspective. It's this holistic work where when you start working with your design and start to align your business with it, everything else starts to work better too. Everything else starts to come together too. So in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing a key factor that helps with this. What do I do? How do I start to use my genius in my business? How do I start putting that front and center? How do I start to know, okay, I know what that means. Now, how do I embody it? I know what that means, but I don't really know how that applies to my business and the other things that maybe comes up in a reading. This is what typically sets off a lot of light bulbs, is when I point this out to people as they're going through and they're looking for an answer. This usually starts to turn light bulbs on in the dark room. It starts to illuminate, oh, okay, that makes sense now. And I was having a conversation with a client the other day. We had a private session and we were talking about this particular element. And honestly, it helped her feel really good about some of the steps she's taken that maybe didn't get the ROI that she thought they would in the past. We all carry a lot of shame about that. We bought a program. It said we would make money, or we thought it would make us money, and it didn't make us the money we thought it would. So we see it as a big failure. And there's a certain group of people that it's really not true for. And hers, actually, she fell into that category. And the illuminating factor was this that I'm going to talk about here, which is circuitry, human design circuitry. It's what we're talking about is the network of channels within the body graph. We're looking at the channels in the body graph, but every gate is part of a circuit as well, even if you don't have the whole channel. So if you're looking at something like your conscious sun, knowing what circuit it's a part of is really a key in understanding how this particular energy will show up for you, how you fine tune it, and what its job is and part of what your destiny is. I understand that many of you will not know what circuitry your gates, your channels are part of. That's why I created a gates guide. So it's by gates, it's not by channel, but I did create a gates and gene keys guide, which will help you start to decode your design. And we added circuitry to it. So for each gate, we tell you what circuit it's a part of. And we don't go into all the sub-circuits because we don't really want to confuse you. And I'm really going to stay with the high level of circuitry in here because it'll get you what you need, right? You're not looking to be a reader or be a coach by human design and diving deep into this. If you are, then you'll go into that in your certification or whatever programs you're a part of. But for this, to use this just in your own business and to get deeper insight into yourself, the 3 levels of circuitry that we give you will be enough, okay? We have a guide that will point out that level of circuitry for you. It'll also give you the center that the gate is a part of. It'll give you the gene keys, frequency bands. It's a nice little quick reference guide for all of the 64 gates. It's totally free. If you want it, just DM me the word gates on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Lano Official. We'll send it to you. And then after you listen to this episode, you could come back to it and you can look at your gates. You could look at your channels and you could see what they are a part of. So it's a great tool to decode your design and it's totally free. Or you could go to NicoleLano.com/gates and you could download it right there. Okay, so let's talk about it. So with human design, there's lots of information. There's a ton. We have 36 channels, 64 gates, 9 centers. There's so much in there that it can be really overwhelming. And shortcuts to understanding what it all means can be really helpful. And circuitry is definitely one of those things. And I think one of the things that can make human design confusing sometimes too is that you've probably noticed that some gates sound like they have similar meaning, right? Some gates sound like they have similar meaning, or you might have 2 aspects of your design that seem like they are contradicting each other. Like I told someone the other day that she has an open ajna. So focus might be difficult for her. It's squirrel brain. What squirrel? It's ADHD brain. That focus might be more difficult for her But then she also has the 952 channel of concentration. So how is it that concentration is one of her gifts and potentials, but her ability to focus can be difficult? The answer to that lies in understanding where these energies come from. It comes in understanding that the 952 channel is actually coming from the root center to the sacral. It's not about the focus of the mind. It's about a focus of energy. It's different. It behaves differently. And then we can go into the circuitry of that too. But really what I wanted to draw out is understanding some of these. Sometimes we think we need to get super, super deep into things. And honestly, it's actually about zooming out and saying, okay, well, I have that gate. It's like, well, what center is that a part of? That tells you something about it. You might be so caught up in the detailed description that you miss the big picture, that this is a mind gate or this is an identity gate. Oh, it's about direction. It's about receiving. And it's like, it's part of your purpose. It's part of, if you're gate 2, that's part of the G center. So it has something to do with the direction of your life, about who you are and where you're going and what your destiny is. That's a very different theme than a gate in the sacral center. It's about doing, right? So sometimes we need to zoom out rather than zoom in and get super, super detailed. There are lots of aspects that will help you do this if you start looking at things by zooming out rather than zooming in on helping you find what offers are aligned for you, helping you understand what your messaging is, how you help people, who you help. Type, authority, centers are all very valuable. But knowing what to do with all of this, circuitry can really help you understand another layer of this and can be kind of, if you tried those other things and you're still a little confused, then this might be just the thing that you've been waiting for. So let's talk about circuitry. So like I said, every gate or channel falls under circuitry. It falls into one of those categories. Some of them technically play a little double duty, but we're not going to talk about that. But it falls into one of these 3 categories cleanly. And the circuitry categories that I'm going to give you are individual, tribal, and collective. They behave differently. They care about different things. Their purpose is different. What they want to do, what they're here to do, are very, very different. And I'm going to give you the keynotes for each of these that can help you go deeper into understanding what your process is. So individual, tribal, and collective are the 3 that we're going to talk about. Now, there is a 4th one called integration. And integration is different. It is similar to individual, although it's not exactly the same. Maybe I will talk about it. I'll talk about integration. It's a little bit trickier to understand. It's the funny channels that go from, so integration is the 1020 channel, I'm doing this from memory, the 3420, the 5720, I believe, because some of these are individual and some of these are integration. But the key to understanding this is that there are keynotes for each of these circuits. So integration and individual circuitry, regardless of whatever they are, they're about you. They're about your process. They're about being an example. They are selfish in nature. Integration in particular is very selfish. And by selfish, I mean it's concerned with its own process. This was the thing I was discussing with my client. She is mainly an integration circuit person. Most of her definition, all but one channel, is integration circuitry. And I told her that the self-discovery journey, she kept really obsessing over what to share and what to put out there and grappling with the fact that she didn't really feel called to do that in the way that she was trying to make that happen. And then what happens to your identity when you start to question the thing that you think you want? And I told her, I said, you're an integration person. You're learning more now by going through your process. Your process, you're here to be an example to others. It actually makes total sense that you don't really want to share anything at this moment or share it the way that you want, like coaching people, because it's about you. It's not really about them. You'll share in a different way. You'll put something out there, but you're going to put out your story. You're going to put out your thing. I never tell you what it has to be, but I wanted to give her, and this is the big thing, is human design can give you permission. And it can tell you, don't feel bad about doing it your way. Because she was. Even though she's doing this work, even though I'm standing there with her and I'm coaching her, she was still in her mind saying it should be another way. Where are you doing that? Where are you catching yourself saying it should be another way, or I have to do it this way? It's got to be like this. I've got to do this. This can give you a little understanding, a little window into maybe you're just thinking about it wrong. What if you gave your permission to go full force into the thing that felt good? Now, this is what I mean about strategy saving you every time. Because if you're a projector, you want to dig into like, what's my wisdom? What am I recognized for? What do I love to be recognized for? Generators, if you were following your strategy and authority, you would be diving into whatever made you feel good, whatever you were responding to. Manifestors, you shouldn't be thinking about anything that should be. It's your way and whatever you want, whenever you want. That's the way, right? But if sometimes we need another window, sometimes we know all of that stuff, but the not self takes over, trying to find an answer, we're trying to make something happen. So for her, it was a huge permission slip for her to be able to say, oh, I get to just enjoy this thing that I'm really enjoying. I get to see where it's going. And oh, if I focus on my story and on my journey and on what I've done and what I've learned, then maybe that answer will come. And it's already started to appear to her. It's already started to become clearer. And every time she gives herself permission to do what's right for her, what's truly right, it gets easier and another thing opens. The epiphany comes in. I was saying to somebody else this week, I was like, yeah, well, the business readings are sort of like, it's like we're planting an epiphany garden. I go and I plant all of these seeds, and then you go off and you start doing your work. And because everyone in my Business by Design mentorship gets these business readings with me, and they get other one-on-ones with me as well. But the business reading, I'm like, it's the epiphany garden we are planting. And throughout our time together, you're going to go off, you're going to do your thing, you're going to dive into the other work, and then you're going to have these little epiphanies, these light bulbs that go off. And then you're going to come back and you're going to talk to me about them, and I'm going to help you work it out, how this is showing up. How can you use this? And we start to carve out what is the correct and aligned business for you. It's really fun. So it is about opening yourself up when every time she relaxes into what feels right for her, into what truly feels aligned for her. Like when I told her that this was her way and not the other way, it's like this sigh of relief. Oh, wow. She's like, I felt that. That feels really good. And now when it feels really good, now your nervous system is at ease. It is relaxed. It is open. Now your mind isn't racing. You are able to create something very, very different from that state and that space than you can when your mind is racing, when you're trying to figure it out, when you are increasing your heart rate and going into fight or flight because you're wondering, is this going to work this time? I don't really want to do that. So you start to protect yourself from actually doing the thing that you don't want to do. This is how we get in our own way. And this is how human design can start to open up those narrow passages to something you can actually pass through. So that's individual circuitry. Individual and integration circuitry are selfish in nature. They are here to be the example, not necessarily be the one that's helping everybody. It doesn't mean you can't help people. But if it doesn't feel right for you to do that, and you are largely an individual circuitry person, if your channels are all individual circuitry, your conscious sun is individual, all of that stuff is individual, you have strong individual traits, then yeah, that probably makes a lot of sense that you don't want to work like that. That doesn't feel right to you. You want to make an impact? Sure, you do it differently. You do it through your work. So things like going into your human design, diving into your process, diving into what makes you tick, doing the things that feel right to you, tapping your creativity, that will lead you further than trying to figure out how you build this thing for other people, right? Second, circuitry is tribal. Tribal, the keynotes for tribal are the keynote is support. This is about community, governance, the material way, money. These are all themes that have to do with those things. They have to do with the business side of things. They have to do with usually about making something happen, creating something, but really doing it from like almost a sales perspective, especially the ego circuit within the tribal circuit. It's concerned with the needs of others, which is why we get the sales thing in there. So if you have the 2644 channel and people tell you like, oh, it's the channel of the entrepreneur, the salesman, you're like, it doesn't really feel that way to me. It's about tapping into the needs of others and being able to put language to it that you can transmit in a way that's authentic and strong and hopefully in integrity, and people will buy it from you. I am largely a tribal person. That's why when I've tried to focus my business in other areas where I left that part out, it didn't really feel right. It feels like I'm leaving part of me out, which is why I do human design for business, not just human design. Okay. And then collective circuitry is the last one. Collective circuitry, the keynote for this is sharing. It is reflective in nature. It's looking backwards, or it's looking to figure out a pattern or a formula to try to figure out how we can make everything better. Collective circuitry is looking at the outside world and having opinions and having thoughts about what's going wrong and how we can make it better, how we can contribute to the whole. These are the sharers. I am tribal and I'm collective. I don't have any individual circuitry in my channels anyway. I have gates that are in the individual, but I am largely a tribal collective person. I can't help but share. It's part of me. And when I make that the focus, so if I say, I think an interesting one for this is like the 1858 channel of judgment. It is about judging and critiquing things that you see going wrong. Now, a lot of these people who have this can also be perfectionists and can be really hard on themselves. They can be perfectionists with themselves. Knowing that it's collective energy helps me explain to them, this is collective. It's not for you. Your criticism, your judgments are not about you. And they're not judgment for judgment's sake. They are judgment to make everything better for other people. I was looking at the time of recording this. Yesterday was February 4th, was Rosa Parks' birthday. Rosa Parks was, of course, the civil rights hero. In 1955, she refused to give up her seat on the bus for a white person. And she kicked off the bus boycotts. And this was a huge moment in the civil rights movement. And she's a huge, tremendous figure and American hero for what she did. And one of her channels, she has a really fascinating chart. I should do a reading about her, but she has the 1858 channel. She saw something wrong with the way things were. And she made a choice in that moment to take her action, to play her part in calling out what she thought was wrong, in calling out what she would not stand for anymore. 1858 is also just very damn the man. It is just like, you are not taking care of the people. Authority can be bad. It was also, it's all over her chart. That was a really fascinating chart. But that 1858 channel, that channel of correction, that channel of judgment, said, no, not today. I will be part of that correction today. So her behavior was in alignment with her sharing her view through her behavior, changing what she thought was wrong by saying no. So when we start to understand these bigger themes, sometimes that can help us understand how the details really come through for us. I use this in helping people decide how to structure their offers for sure. Like I said, if you are an individual, you may really not want to have a lot of like one-on-one structured long-term programs that might feel really suffocating to you. And if it feels suffocating to you, then you're going to hold yourself back from selling that thing, even if it could make you all the money in the world. Humans are funny creatures. We want something, but if our subconscious says that's not safe, we don't really want that, because if we do, we're going to have to like really be holding a lot of people, and we're not going to be really in charge of our time. And individuals don't like that. They don't like anybody telling them what to do. They don't like authority. They don't trust it. And they really don't like people demanding on their time. And they're also moody. So they don't necessarily know if they're going to feel like showing up to coach people at that time. It's not what they're designed to do. So we find other ways to do that. And when we find the right offer, then suddenly it becomes easier for them to sell. Isn't that funny? So I hope you found this helpful. If you want that Gene Keys and Gates guide that I've created with the circuitry, so you can find your circuitry as well, and you can start to decode your design on your own with that free guide, all you have to do is DM me the word Gates on Instagram. I'm at Nicole Lano Official. We'll send it to you right there, or go to NicoleLano.com/Gates and we can send it to you. You can grab it right there from the website. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you as always. And remember, in order to have an unshakable business, you must first become an unshakable human. So thanks for letting us help you become unshakable with human design, everybody. We'll see you next time.
If you loved this episode and you're a fan of the show, please show us the love on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the show and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with other entrepreneurs on their human design journey, join our free Facebook community, Human Design for Entrepreneurs. Go to NicoleLano.me/podcast links to join the group, book a human design reading with me, or access our free human design resources. We'll see you there.